G'day guys and welcome to another episode of Down to Business. Today we're talking all things systems and processes and everything in between with Stacie Shaw of PKF. Welcome, Stace.
Thanks, Andrew.
So, for most SMEs and a lot of the business owners watching this or listening to this this episode, probably thinking, well, what's a system? And a system being a technology solution, it could be, but I'm the last person to probably start on, what's the best and what's the worst and how does it benefit your business. But we do know it's important. And today Stacie's going to hopefully enlighten us and take us right through how business owners can systemise or get their business ready so that they get the benefits and not rely on them all the time. But welcome, Stace, as I said, and we might start with a bit of a background on Stacie Shaw. How's your career come to date?
So I started with PKF 17 years ago as a trainee in business services. Did a rotation through audit and insolvency as part of a work experience program. Worked for a few years and ironically, I suppose, decided I never wanted to be a partner in an accounting firm. Looked for other jobs and as part of that process, one of the partners found out, asked me what I wanted to do. And so I explained it to him and he offered me that kind of role here in business services. So more operational, strategic, people management, systems management. Did that for a few years, then moved up into the practice services team for the firm. So sat as CFO and I guess head of HR and ops for the firm for a while.
Still very numbers, yeah?
Yeah, or systems and stuff as well, I suppose. Mandate to go in and have a look at the way we were doing things and whether there was any efficiencies around that. Had a couple of babies and was welcomed, I suppose, back into business services in the old role, so ops, strategy, all that kind of stuff. And then post the most recent maternity leave, we as a firm have moved our tech stack from one desktop-based platform to a cloud system with a whole bunch of plugins.
So hang on, before we go, what's a tech stack for viewers that probably aren't savvy with some of this, like myself, with some of this wording?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose just all the different pieces of software these days, if you're cloud-based, if there's things like open-sourced APIs that you can plug the apps in to speak to each other, just helps with having a central source of truth for client and employee data, but making use of best of breed technology that you can plug in and automate and streamline.
It's the things in our computers that make our business work.
Yeah.
So, I'm getting what you said here. So, but I guess there's been another evolution that more recently you've been made a partner in an accounting firm, but you don't do much accounting.
Correct.
All right. So tell me what you do.
Yeah, so I suppose taking my career path from the last 17 years and trying to do that same work with clients on their businesses, but shortcutting it. So taking, I guess, the best of what I've learned, the best techniques, kind of how to identify the pain points quickly and easily, being able to go upstream and downstream to figure out, your lagging indicator is not necessarily the source of your problem at the end of the day. So how do we fix the real problem behind the problem to make everything more efficient and make everyone happier?
Don't know. We'll get into more what that means, but I think for me, we talk a lot about the balanced scorecard and the drivers of your business as opposed to just the numbers. And too many business owners literally manage their business from a P&L, probably at best, but sometimes a balance sheet and hopefully a cash flow. But we know there's so many gaps out there now. I mean, in my way of thinking, these things are a result. Or your hard work, and generally you need to make sure your people are right, your customers are marketing, etc., and your processes and systems, which is the part really where we're talking about with yourself. Very key part. The numbers are, what realistically eventuates from all that kind of stuff. So I can personally, see where that fits very well with the numbers. But again, you want to be making sure you got these things in place so your numbers are consistent, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the clients I work with come to me as a referral as a result of a financial complaint. So I'm not getting timely information and I'm not getting accurate information. The information between these two entities don't line up. Why? And so often they think that they need a review of their finance function, but actually it's a case of, well, you've got no procedures around stock handling. And so, the way that literally the stock's coming into the stores, being receipted or not, being ticked off or not, how that then translates into what goes in as your financial information that then spits out the end. Really, it's rubbish in, rubbish out. So yeah, the finance function is something that we can, make efficient and streamline and, put all the things in place. But, if you don't fix the stock handling issue right back to ordering and warehouse management, then changing the finance function won't fix that problem.
Oh, it could, but I mean, it could even be, you mentioned stock, but it's basically anything that's probably manual,
Yep.
and anything that's trapped with an individual or a group of individuals.
Yeah. Another client I'm working with, a builder who is an excellent builder. If he can be on site at every site every day, things go really well. But he wants to scale, and he knows that he can't be on site every day. And so he needs, systems and checklists and, apps for the guys on site to use to make sure that the checklist he would run through in his head, I suppose, or the things that he quickly and easily identifies as a problem, someone else can catch for him.
Yeah, to me, I got told this a long, long time ago now, but business in itself is actually not that hard. It's the people that manage to make it hard. And whether it's making it hard or whether it's a reliance on those people, I guess that's that scale piece. Any time that you want to get leverage, or any time that you've got a time dilemma, you need to make a process. Yeah, very good. Well, so just to be clear, we have mentioned software and we've mentioned systems. Whilst yes, software is generally known as a system, we're not just talking systems in regards to technology.
Yeah,
we're
100%.
talking to systemizing or process mapping your business and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So definitely going in and looking at the software that's being used. Sometimes it's used excessively, especially at the moment. It's very easy to have a central system like a Xero or like a Monday.com or something like that, and there's hundreds literally of apps that you could choose and plug in, and you could plug in, they won't stop you plugging in as many as you like, but you've got overlapping functionality, some are not necessarily best of breed. So sometimes it's about cutting some of the technology away. Also, you tend to find a team will get like app fatigue because they've got to log into this one to do this, but then log into that one to do this. And so sometimes consolidating the technology can help, but again, you can have all the apps in the world, and if there's no system behind it, if there's no consistent process, it doesn't matter if you do it today or I do it tomorrow, we do it the same way. If that's not set out, and sometimes that's as simple as a Word document or an Excel checklist.
Yeah, so your how-to guide.
Yeah,
I remember might have even said to you some time ago, but a lot of people, I think, as soon as you mention things like systems, processes, and for that matter, whether you're talking different functions within a business, straight away they think, oh, we're not big enough, or we're not sophisticated enough, or we don't need. Well, the need's still there. It just may be that the owners are wearing many hats and have to put these in place. But I guess that's even supporting the argument more for systems and processes. But I always say when people say, oh, it's hard to put a process in place, I go, well, tell me how to do that over there, and boom, 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 boom. Write it down. That's rudimentary, yes, but a very simple way of a process, I imagine.
100%. Yeah, spot on. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing with teams, I guess, is helping them articulate the process. I don't think I've walked into a single business where someone didn't know what needed to be done. It just wasn't documented and it wasn't consistent. So I don't have to be a good builder to help a builder systemize their business, I guess. No one does. And again, every client that I've spoken to could do this. They just don't have time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess we're jumping a bit ahead, but the reality is, we got day to day, shit happens. You got everything going on. Actually carving out that additional time that needs to be spent on that great idea and putting that process in place. But I would imagine you've created really a business off that.
Yeah, very literally. I mean, I suppose too, it's chicken and the egg, right? So you talk to a business owner and they go, I don't have time to do that because I'm busy dealing with this chaos. But some of that chaos is a direct result of not having systems in place to stop that chaos happening. So I suppose what I love, what matches my personality is two things that I think I'm good at, is being organised and catastrophizing. So sitting here and, you ask me to do something and I go, well, okay, but if we do that, then this could happen, or, that might happen. If we do that, that'll affect that. And you've got to think about these 5 things and tell these 6 people. So I suppose having a mind to help someone sit down and go, well, you don't realise that if you're changing these 2 things, that's making that person's job harder, which they're spending more time on. So they've got less time to free up to help you manage that catastrophe that is actually out of your control. So I think a lot of the stuff that particularly business owners deal with seems like only they can deal with it, but could be prevented or minimised if the system was in place in the first place. Yeah.
I think the other thing there is too, by using someone that's still in this space all the time across, just thinking aloud, across a myriad of different industries or businesses and that sort of thing, you'll get that wider experience or wider knowledge, or they've seen different things that they can apply to someone's business, as opposed to, just being the business owner trying to go, well, I'm dealing with what I've got to produce an outcome. That would have to be some pretty big benefits in there, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah. So commonalities, definitely, most businesses and systems are 80% the same. But even sometimes you're too close, can't see the forest for the trees type thing. So literally this morning I was speaking to a new client, and he was saying, so we download the document and then we write an email and then we attach that document and send it to the client. And I said, okay, have you got a checklist of this is what happens when you send something out to a client? And he goes, no, but I should. And I said, okay, and do you have a standard email template that says when you send a document out to a new client, this is your standard blurb and you tweak it? And he went, no, but that seems so obvious. I don't know why we don't have that. So again, having, I suppose an external person come in and just go, hey, have you thought about this, this and this, can help.
Yeah, it's very much some of that's just that. I mean, it doesn't need to be very technical
or clever. No,
it's practical. Very pragmatic approach to how do I get better usage of time or limited resources and that sort of thing.
My approach is always, if you do something more than once, document it. So whether that's a checklist or a standard template or
and we'll get to some of the reasons why in a minute, but I guess when we talk processes, and you've said, it's to make sure it's consistency, make sure that it's out of people's heads, etc. We'll talk a few more of those, but fast forward to the ultimate benefits.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I guess every business owner is in business, and I'm not telling anyone how to suck eggs, but you're either in business because you want more money or more time, I suppose, or more control maybe over what you do day to day. And if you get into business without good, solid systems, all you're doing is buying yourself a job. And you're still tied to the business. You're not necessarily creating a valuable asset that you could sell in future. So if everything's in your head and if the business doesn't run without you, no one's going to want to buy that business from you as part of your retirement plan or, whatever the next
reality
step.
is, if it is reliant on someone, it's not really a business because you can't invest in that unless that person's there.
Yeah. And I think the mistake too is even if it doesn't run without the owner, does it run without the C-suite? And even if it runs without the C-suite, does it run without that key warehouse manager or that key finance person or that, So if there's any kind of key man risk at any level in the business, that's a problem.
And I think, C-suite, probably larger organisations, but last point you just said there, any size business with any key person reliance is an issue. If you want, I deal a lot in the corporate finance, the business sales and that sort of thing. So if you're talking about valuation, higher prices, better or more favourable terms to you if you wanted to sell an asset or even have an asset to sell, then you need to get that reliance on key people as far out of the business as you can.
Yep.
Yeah. So to me, that's, I guess profitability will always be, touch wood, but generally always be more existent, if you like, with these processes because we can get leverage. We're not relying just on your time or the business owner's time, but more importantly, that valuation piece.
Yeah,
we're lowering that risk that you're going to attract more interested parties to potentially take you out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's true in terms of long-term saleability, but even just like right now, can you take leave for a month right now?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got someone who's given you good systems, right? But if the answer is no, and again, that applies to anyone in the whole business. If you can't do payroll because your payroll officer's on leave, that's a problem. And that's a huge problem because what if they're sick and, suddenly sick for an extended period of time? So it's risk. It's about risk management as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other one on that is you start to, I guess, go down this path of setting processes. Like you said, is it relying on key people? Like, to me, your key people aren't the ones to assess the process. No. Really, it's someone that hasn't been exposed to the process. Can they follow it and do it and get the outcome you're after?
Yep. Yeah, and so the other thing that we often do is I'll sit with you to write a process that you govern, but then I go to the person who's got to do it on a day-to-day basis and go, is this true? And they'll go, conceptually, yeah. And I go, okay, what do you mean? And they go, well, if everything's perfect, yes, that's how it runs. But if this thing changes, you've got to do this instead. And if that didn't happen, you've got to compensate with this. So it's about documenting holistically the process, I suppose, so that it's, not just in an ideal world, this is how our business runs, but practically day to day, these are the things that you have to know to make this business work. Yeah.
And I mean, like to me, the biggest example of systems and processes that we're all familiar with, and I hate to say probably eat it too much, but is McDonald's. And then I'm started there way back when in the day, and I've seen it inside, a long time ago, but they've been doing this for years and years and years, and hence why, you go to a McDonald's locally versus a McDonald's in the other side of the country, within reason, you should get the same output.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So, and that is part of, I suppose, what builds both profit and value, right? And so they can hire anyone, train them easily and quickly because it's all documented. Everyone knows it's the same system, the same process, means quality output, at least consistent output, I suppose, in that you get a cheeseburger here, it's the same as a cheeseburger there, and valuable because you can sell it to another franchisee. Know what you're getting.
Do you want fries with that?
Yeah.
So I guess we spoke about increasing profit, which in turn increase valuation. But there are other benefits. What's other benefits in relation to being systemised?
Well, I mean, it just makes people happier, and not to get too touchy-feely about it, but at the end of the day, especially at the moment with recruitment being a big issue in the market, people want to come to work and do something they know they're good at, do something that makes them happy. And a lot of people that I talk to sometimes won't suggest things that are painful because they don't know the answer. So I think that's the benefit of having someone external come in as well, because I say to them, what don't you like about your job? And often they'll say to me, this one thing's really annoying, but it only takes me 10 minutes a day, don't worry about it. My attitude kind of is twofold. Number one, 10 minutes a day is 50 minutes a week, which is, pushing an hour, so 50 hours a year. If I could make your life happier for 50 hours a year, and if you're doing it, someone else in the business is probably doing it as well. And besides that, if you're not spending your time doing that, you could be spending your time doing something that you do enjoy. And then the other thing is often that one little thing that they're having to do that they don't enjoy doing is systemic. It's kind of symptomatic, I suppose, of a problem, a bigger problem. So you tug at that little thread and it unravels this big one. You fix that and suddenly you've made a huge difference to the whole business.
No, very good point. No, I guess the other things there, we mentioned, less reliance on key people, but that'd be dealing a fair bit with risk management.
Yep.
Yeah. Whether that be key people or, quality control or, as I said, output. And in some businesses, it's going to be a lot more, a lot more of an issue to get wrong than get right around their output. For instance, chemicals or mining or whatever it be, rather than maybe not the local takeaway. But, there's some of these things we have to talk about that are, it's a big issue, especially if you've got a lot of governance and things that you've got stakeholders that, need to be aware of. Clarity. Yep. Helping people to get on the same page. That's going to be a great one. Especially where you're, as you said, if you're doing it more than once, but also if you've got more than one person doing it, a lot of replication, or it could be, we want to prevent duplication and get things right. And we mentioned before about allowing for scale.
Yep.
To me, anytime you've got a limited resource, we need to be thinking about how we get the most out of it. And this just plays straight to that.
Yeah, well, and like I say, especially at the moment, the whole world is struggling with recruitment, right? So if you can have people be more efficient, more effective, then hopefully that person you can't hire anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk real practical. I mean, we're speaking a lot in how systems and pros can benefit. Obviously high level. You could talk about this I know you could talk about this for days. I couldn't, but if we talk then about some of the real examples, and maybe we pick a few different, business or client opportunities you've worked on. Talk about one of the first ones you started with when you went into this for outside of the PKF group.
Yep. Yeah, so NDIS provider and wanting to scale, wanting to expand locations, but more than that, just wanting to have everything, out of his head, out of his team's head, and turned into, the outputs that I've kind of already talked about. So we started with, and I tend to start with just a big kind of brain dump, I suppose, of what are the actions, what are the things that need to happen, what are your pain points, where's your key risks, who are your key people. And that ended up almost a 60-item action list, so it can be fairly hectic. The second thing then was to understand how we're actually going to get this done, because again, you can do it, your team can do it, but they don't have time to do it, otherwise it would already be done. So working through, that was a bit of an experiment with him, I suppose, around putting it on their action list, and it took even still, we're still trying to get traction and finish that. So as opposed to, he's now recently said to me, just come in and sort it out for me, Stace, just come in and get it done. But so that action list has turned into overarching handbooks that start with a visual process map. So the other thing he wanted was a way not to just have a consistent process, but to make sure people are following it. Because it's one thing, I suppose, to produce, a checklist or a flowchart, but how do you actually make sure practically that it gets implemented? So something that we use internally here is, for a compliance job, you move from this step to this step to this step, and someone signs off at every step to make sure that's being followed. So he's now got those maps stuck up on his walls, and the team follow that as calls come in. Documenting detailed handbooks. So, we spend time on calls that we record and then go back and take screenshots, and it's literally click here, click here, click here. His finance person's going on leave in a month, and we're ready for that. We've got that handbook.
So just on that point, before you keep going with your examples, at what point does it become too intense or too process mapped? And how do you play, I guess, the devil's advocate in that space?
Yeah, no, definitely, because it's very easy to get carried away. I suppose depends. So what we try and come at is, what do you want as the outcome in terms of what do you need so that if someone new starts tomorrow with the actual highly detailed stuff versus what's practical on a day-to-day basis. Like, no one's going to read through a 400-page handbook every day as part of doing their job, but they are happy to tick off on a weekly, fortnightly, monthly, end of year, end of quarter checklist that's got 10 items on it. So that's part of the output as well, I suppose, balancing. You still need to capture the detail, but practically, how do you use that each day? So the outputs that we've got for him are the action list that's guiding us, the handbooks, the flowcharts, the checklists, and then a calendar. So from his point of view, we've built him a governance calendar effectively that says, creditors happen twice a month, payroll happens once a fortnight. And it's a setup with a traffic light system. Again, we've got all these automated inputs, and then his finance manager, his rostering manager, whatever comes in, updates it as they go, and then turns red, yellow, green for him to have a high level.
Yeah, so I guess a good way of saying is these things that can't be missed.
Yep.
Things that have got, and that might be can't be missed by dates or obligations, or it could be can't be missed because you could kill someone at the end of the day, depending on the business. But things that are duplicated a lot or replicated a lot.
Yep.
Things where we're scaling, we're expanding, and we've got new sites. You need people to understand, but you still allow, I'd imagine, a lot of room for innovation or entrepreneurial thinking, or really that personality piece.
Yeah. No. Yep. Absolutely.
So, okay, another example.
Well, what can I just touch on when you talk about still allowing the open thinking? So something that we at PKF are very strong on and very clear about is we know that our process is not perfect and will never be. We don't pretend that it is, but we're very solid on the fact that we want to have a process and that everyone follows that process. And so if there's a piece of feedback that you have, or if you think you've got a better way of doing it, amazing, tell us, we'll incorporate that into the process, and then we still have one process. So again, taking that to clients and saying, how do you get feedback from your team?
Which most don't.
So I've actually been really surprised. Every client I've worked with so far, the highest, the managing director or whatever their title might be, CEO, have been able to get good feedback with me in the room. So I wasn't expecting that to be the case. And if they don't, if there's some kind of disconnect, then that's again where I can play a role to say, you don't know me, you don't care what I think, tell me, have a whinge. But yeah, so making sure they've got a system in place to, whether it's monthly, quarterly meetings with their team to make sure they're getting the feedback on, is this practically working? Is this the best way? Because the team are the ones who know. Yeah.
No, I think it's a good point, but I want to pick up your builder client.
Yep.
I know we've worked a bit with builders over the years where one of the hardest parts in building, especially in contract building, is the tendering process.
Yep.
And the costing out jobs, that you do all this work and it might lead to no actual deliverable for the client, therefore you don't get paid, and there were some telling signs at the start. So what's some of the things you can help in that space? It's a very practical one.
I mean, I hope I'm answering the right question. In terms of, we tried to make his upfront process as automated as possible. So we're using Anitra for e-signing that you can build templates into. You can, have client onboarding forms, this is what you're getting at, that sit in the back end. So you send that to the client, they pre-fill the data for you. As much as possible, that data drops into your existing system, so you're not having to rekey the data. So the time that you're spending upfront, as you say, for no gain potentially, is minimised as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think it's also having those steps in place that we probably don't think of when we just think, oh, we've got a job here, etc. But, a consistent set of questions to ask or work through to ensure, for instance, in that case, have they got finance approved?
Yes.
You know, what's their budget? Is their DA through yet? Have they got an architect? Like these sort of things. So you go, okay, when's the right time to invest my time as a builder, business owner? To work through the process versus when am I going to do a lot of work for no payback?
Well, and even one of their key questions is, are you willing and do you have funding that is approved on the basis of Contract Plus or Cost Plus? Because if not, we can't work with you. So yeah, call that out day one instead of, like you say, go through the whole quote process for no point. Yeah.
Got one more example for me?
So working with a very large client who wants to build everything himself, doesn't want to use apps. So working through, I guess, quarterbacking him on, he's smarter than me, smarter than I'll ever be, but I suppose giving him that reality check. I'm reasonably conservative as far as risk and things like tech debt. So I don't want to have a developer build something bespoke for you that is then reliant only on that developer, as opposed to, a third-party supported app that, if changes happen and, Microsoft changes something, like they deal with that for you. So I think that we have robust discussions around that kind of stuff of, I play devil's advocate for him of, have you thought about this and what if that changes, that catastrophizing thing, I suppose.
So sometimes it's, as you're saying, it's even just being that sounding board or given the advice piece as opposed to the actual doing. So it's even what you're offering is quite scalable, if you like.
I hope so.
So I'd imagine, just thinking here, well, I'm a business owner, and when I look at this, larger business, more resources can probably, it's not best practice, but can probably, afford not to pay as much attention here because of their resources. Whether they should or shouldn't, it's not a point for contention. But smaller business that probably have in their mind that we're not big enough for this, if anything, they need this more than anyone.
True. Yeah. So bigger businesses that I've worked with, I've seen it takes too long to process accounts. They just hire someone else. So you're right. They just hire and they're expending heaps on wages that they probably don't need to. Whereas a small business, less likely to get away with that, I suppose.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And you've gone into this now as your version in your accounting business of what you're offering. Take up's been pretty sound.
Yeah. Yep. Out of control, which is an amazing problem to have. Got to systemize money.
Got to be systemised.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can talk about this stuff all day, like with most of our sessions we do with different professionals, because it really does help the business owner. But a bit of a recap for our viewers. I mean, in reality, we're not talking just software. When we talk systems, we're talking about systemization within your business or putting process in place. In saying that, very important to look at what software you are using. Do you have more than you need? Do you have enough? Is it working, talking together? Is it backed by a how-to guide, that sort of thing? Getting people more efficient, stop the duplication, getting consistent with how they apply things. There's some very valuable pieces there for why we'd have processes in place. And processes don't need to be overcomplicated. It can be simple checklists. It could be just helping you to document what's in your head. I liked when you said generally increases profit. I'm sure most business owners would like that, and therefore valuation, because we get rid of that, well, as much as we can, that key person risk, which is really a killer in most businesses. Not just key person from a sale point of view, but key person if you want to take leave or just if people are off, etc. We know how we do it. And I think the other things that you mentioned there, which are pretty key to me, was risk management, allowing you to get leverage and scale, which effectively means if you want to grow as a business, and it gives people clarity. And I'll touch on you. You said makes people happy. That's probably not my word. That's Stacie's, but But I mean, anything else around systemization approach you think is important? Because I think it's a fair argument there as to why business owners need to look at this.
I mean, I think you've covered it pretty well.
There you go. Well said. Well, Stace, thanks for joining me. I am a big advocate for this space. I don't get into the detail, but that's where having someone like yourself and your team can really help business owners get to that point they want to get to, and not have to be slaves to their business. I guess make it a true investment. So thanks for joining me. But to everyone else, thanks for watching another episode, and until next time, cheers.